What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday, the Game Awards Game of the Year nominations were revealed, and as you'd expect, sent the internet going crazy, all kinds of reactions online, and while some of it was expected with the games that were shown, there were at least a couple of surprises in there, and we'll go over all of that here today. Also, we are to be talking about an Xbox Developer Direct that's been announced. It'll be happening here in just a few days, and there's been rumors going around about the next big, I guess you'd call it, impossible port for the Switch 2. At least that's how it's being viewed by some online, but this sounded crazy, and now we're getting more information coming around that Rockstar might be checking out the Switch 2 a bit, but we'll go over all of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with the Legend of Zelda movie that is slated to come out in 2027. And as we now know, Nintendo is, they're going big for the big screen, as we're hearing about all kinds of other movies that are coming up in the future after the Mario Galaxy movie that's scheduled for 2026, and then this Legend of Zelda movie. But it has now started filming, and we have a couple of shots, it looks like, from set. We can see this. This was shared by Nintendo, saying, "This is Miyamoto." There you go. Filming is underway for the live-action film of The Legend of Zelda in a lush, natural setting. And we have some images here of Bo Bragason, and we have Benjamin Evan Ainsworth, of course, them reprising their roles of Princess Zelda and then Link. And you know what? It looks good. Here's the thing. I thought about it, I don't really know what I was expecting a live-action Zelda movie to look like. I guess this is it. Whenever I pictured the idea of them making a Zelda movie, it was always just, oh, it'll be animated. No, this looks like this looks pretty serious in tone. I think at least just some of the visuals they have here looks about right, I guess. Here's the other big part. It's going to come down to what happens when Link starts talking. Of course, you feel like you would need that in a movie. It's not necessarily going to play up like in the games where you don't really need Link to say much of anything. So that's going to be the big question mark. At least here, though, looks like so far so good. But the movie isn't slated to come out until May of 2027, so we still have a bit. They just wanted to let us know, yes, it has indeed started filming. Also, it looks like Game Informer will be returning to store shelves here in December, which we can see. They did post this up over on their social media account, saying it'll be available in major retailers, including Barnes & Noble, GameStop, WH Smith, Books A Million, and more in the US and internationally. It's funny to think that GameStop, of course, did own Game Informer for a while there. Then it was shut down. Then it was purchased, I believe, by Gunzilla, and then they turned into their own business. And now we've come full circle, and they're going to go ahead and stock Game Informer in GameStop all over again. But it's kind of like, this is, I guess, where we are with some of the magazine brands now. It's like, oh, it's kind of like vinyl coming back. Oh, yeah, that's right. Things did come on. They read stuff on paper. So there you go. Hey, again, if you're someone who likes a lot of the artwork, because, they'll come up with some really cool covers that are like the whole front and then the spine and the back of it. You'll at least have physical versions you can pick up starting in December. Oh, and we once again have Microsoft going on this PR tour talking about their next generation device in the fall of 2025 for some reason. But Sarah Bond was talking with Fortune in a YouTube interview. Here we can see the transcription. This is over on Pure Xbox, saying, "Hardware is absolutely core to everything we do at Xbox because we know that our most valuable players, the people who love Xbox, love the hardware experience. And so that is why we're working on our next generation hardware. It's going to be a powerful experience and one that also enables people to take their library with them." We all know, like the Xbox Series, they've moved off of it. I know they're still selling it, but the price point is just, it's unfeasible for most people, right? You see it and you're like, I'm good. Maybe I'll wait for this next generation device they keep hyping up. And they have been talking about it a lot, and it's weird to me to think that it wouldn't come out until holiday 2027 when they're talking about it right now and kind of just like brushing the Xbox Series to the side. And we see the results in the sales where it's constantly down. Every quarter report, 20%, 30%. Eventually you wonder, okay, how many Xboxes are they even selling right now? Like actual numbers. Not many. So that's the one thing that's a hang up for me about 2027. It almost feels like Microsoft wants to talk about the next Xbox system right now, but I guess it's just not ready yet. So maybe holiday 2026 is still on the table, but if that was the case, we'd have to hear about this thing here pretty soon, probably in the next few months. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Game Awards, as they did have all their nominations that were revealed, and there were a lot. They have a ton of categories, the esports stuff, you have audio design, you have your narrative stuff, but I really just wanted to go over the Game of the Year category, as that is clearly the one that's getting the most conversation and just interest outright, and that's typically how they play it up anyway. I mean, some of them they just rifle through in the pre-show, but for the Game of the Year stuff, they do a big orchestral scene, everything leading up to it. So figure, let's give it the spotlight here, which we can see. This from Jeff Keighley, who did post it here in this card to make it very, very easy. We have Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, Death Stranding 2 on the Beach, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Hades 2, Hollow Knight Silksong, and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Wow, you know what? I was going through this, and the only one that's surprising to me, I guess, is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. And the only reason I say that is because Split Fiction was left out for it. I mean, look, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is what, an 88 on Metacritic? People look at Metacritic, of course, for this. It's like an 88 on Metacritic. Split Fiction is what, a 91. So they're within, margin for that to look at and go, well, they're both really, really good games. And while Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 just didn't click for me, I can understand and realize from the time I spent with it, like 10 hours or so, that there is a good game there. It's just not my kind of game. So it's not surprising, I guess, in the sense of, oh, it's a good game to be there. I was more surprised that Split Fiction didn't make the cut. Silksong, I get, because there's so much hype and interest around it, and it is also a good game, so it at least had like kind of the popularity side to it. Hades 2 is legitimately, I think, the best rated game of the year. That's like a 95. Donkey Kong Bonanza, Death Stranding 2 is one that's kind of catching people off guard a bit, but it's Kojima. What are you going to do? And then Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, of course, I think the front runner to win. And you know what? That is the one thing about all of this. In previous years, there was at least an air of what if. Like, okay, maybe we're all thinking this one game is going to win, but just out of left field, this other one wins. Not really the case this year. I mean, look, last year, Astrobot, I feel like was a front runner, but you never really, I mean, there were some other games around it that could have won. And the year before that, we had Baldur's Gate 3 against Tears of the Kingdom, and it really was genuinely a toss-up there. But this year, I think most people go, hey, it's great that all these games got nominated, but Expedition 33 is most likely going to win. And I mean, if you take a look at the most nominated games, Expedition 33 right at the top here. That with 12 nominations. We have Death Stranding 2 and Ghost of Yotei each getting 7 nominations. Hades 2 getting 6 nominations. Silksong getting 5. And then Split Fiction getting 4. And then we can look at the most nominated publishers. Sony Interactive Entertainment got 19 nominations. That is actually tremendous. I mean, most of it leaned, as you can tell, on Death Stranding 2 and Ghost of Yotei, those two combining for 14 nominations, but still 19 total is impressive stuff. 13 nominations for Kepler Interactive. Okay, again, falling in line with what we see with, well, again, a lot of that coming from Expedition 33. 10 nominations from Electronic Arts and Microsoft. 7 for Sega, 6 for Supergiant, and 5 nominations for Team Cherry. The Game Awards will be streaming live December 11th, and I'll be watching it again, mostly for a lot of the announcements, as I do feel like even they kind of downplay a lot of the categories. They'll go through a ton of them very, very quickly. Even in the pre-show, you'll just end up missing like half the awards at that time. But I'm also curious about some of the big announcements that could be here, as Jeff has been building this show constantly year over year, and now it's even going to be on Amazon Prime streaming, so that even seems like a pretty big stage for this show, and you feel like that would warrant him going out and getting even bigger reveals, if, of course, they're available. Remember, this is the show where one year Microsoft showed up with their new console with the Xbox Series. So you never really know, unless you're trying to figure out Game of the Year, in which case it's probably going to be Expedition 33. So, hey, here's hoping they have some really cool reveals to surprise us with. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft and their Xbox Developer Direct that is slated to happen later on this week. We can see this over on news.xbox.com. They say we're excited to reveal that the next Xbox Partner Preview, our broadcast that shines a light on upcoming games from our talented third-party partners, is coming this Thursday, November 20th. This show will include news on upcoming games from partners including IO Interactive, Tencent, and THQ Nordic, plus some brand new reveals and Game Pass announcements. Something I think would be really good, clearly there with Game Pass announcements, since they're getting closer to the end of the year, and they could probably fit in a couple of surprises, but I feel like they've kind of run their course with like big Game Pass reveals and then releases from Microsoft at this point, right? Say during the Xbox Partner Preview, we'll show you an exciting first look at content coming to 007 First Light, Tides of Annihilation, and a fresh look at Reanimal. That's the new horror adventure from the creator of Little Nightmares, all right? And here's the thing, they do mention that all games featured during the partner preview are Xbox Play Anywhere. That means you can, they say, enjoy every single one of them across console, PC, and supported gaming handhelds with just one copy of the game. Very important, by the way, to hone in on that, since third party is generally pretty hit or miss, like, oh, is this going to be Play Anywhere or not? Everything here will be that, so good news, but it will air November 20th, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, and I will be going through, of course, this entire show and the following news wave, that'll be on the 21st then. We'll go ahead and go through everything that was announced line by line, and I'm hoping for some big reveals. Look, so Silent Hill 2, that has already leaked, and apparently it's coming out the 21st, so the day after, I guess, this airs, although time zone differences, who knows? That could have leaked on one side of the world, and actually it's just being shadow dropped here on the 20th, but that is something to at least keep in mind there. And the Xbox Play Anywhere stuff is interesting because the idea of buying one game and it going across your ROG Xbox Ally X or your gaming PC and then on your Xbox, that is the vision that Microsoft is trying to set up, and they got to start somewhere, so this just seems to be them building up, once again, a year or two ahead of when their new hardware comes out that should really bring everything together under your TV. So, hey, we'll see what we have with this partner preview event. I'm not really expecting the world here. I'm going to go with lowered expectations, but hoping for some genuine surprises and one or two really cool Game Pass drops that maybe they can do right away after the event ends. Next up, let's talk about this impossible port that's currently hit the rumor mill for the Switch 2, and this is coming from Rockstar. And GTA 6 going to the Switch 2? It sounds funny to say that because we're still just waiting for gameplay of GTA 6, and it's been delayed multiple times. Now we're talking about throwing a whole other system in the mix, and I mean, that being a hybrid device with being ARM rather than x86, and we're then talking about the PC version. We're just trying to get this game to market at this point, you know, it's be waiting a while. But here's the thing. GTA 6 on the Switch 2 would be legitimately impressive, I think, for people to actually see come to fruition. So because of that, there is, of course, a bit of excitement around that idea, and well, let's start here from the source. This we can see. This is from Nash Weedle. Now, very quickly, I don't cite Nash Weedle much because I feel like there's just scattershot of information that they throw out there, and the majority of it doesn't hit. But this one was interesting, and we'll get to why exactly, but say I can confirm that work is being done on a port of GTA 6 for the Switch 2. The game's delay is not due to this version, and it seems it won't arrive at launch. That's not too surprising. Again, I think right now Rockstar and Take-Two, their primary concern is getting the game released on the announced platforms, and really it just seems like they're going to be doing a ton of QA and bug fixes over the next year or so. I mean, it's just going to be a ton of polishing for the most part to make sure the game is ready to go day one and can do its best to live up to the hype, but the further they push it back, the more hype builds. But anyway, with all this going around, because of course this blew up online as like 350,000 views in like 12 hours or something. They got a lot of discussion around this, and people were asking Nate. And here's the thing. Nate has talked about Rockstar in the past with the Switch 2, and actually GTA 6 says, I said a while ago that Rockstar was doing tests to bring it to Switch 2, but tests don't always equal release. I know an effort has been made to see if they can bring it to the platform. I don't know the current state of that effort. In fact, he mentioned this, I think back in May? So it's been a bit, you know, like he talked about it back then. And the thing you really need to look at here and realize is a lot of these companies, when they get their Switch 2 dev kits, or I mean, even Switch 1 dev kits, you know, years and years ago when that system came out, they'll just try to throw different things at it. And maybe we can get this working, maybe we can't, but we won't know until we attempt to run it on the system. And that, I think, is what we're seeing here right now, if any of this is to be believed, that Rockstar is attempting to see if GTA 6 can run on the Switch 2 because they legitimately don't know. And here's the thing, they could, I'm sure, pare back a lot of the stuff in the game to get it working on, I mean, let's face it, a handheld that pulls 10 watts. That's already impressive when you think of the stuff like Cyberpunk that's running on it. But GTA 6, we believe, is going to be like the pinnacle of this generation in terms of details, in terms of graphics. the whole thing, right? So while they are focusing right now on the PS5, it seems as kind of the baseline. It's like, okay, can we get it on the Switch too? If we pull back on resolution, if we pull back on frame rate, but if it's already 30 frames, where do we go from there? And that again is the question mark. If it can run, let's see if we can get it done. So them testing it in like the dark corner of the office at Rockstar with all the secret NDA walls up and everything doesn't necessarily mean that GTA 6 is coming to Switch 2. Certainly shows that they have an interest, and why wouldn't they? They have moved Grand Theft Auto, their Definitive Edition trilogy and stuff, over. They've done Red Dead Redemption. Word is Red Dead Redemption 2 is going to make its way over at some point to the Switch 2. So it would make sense, business-wise, if that game works and is in condition that they're comfortable releasing it in, then yeah, why not put it on a system that is clearly selling very, very quickly and has grown to be even more of a mature audience over time, just by nature of even the pricing on the device at this point, as it's getting more and more expensive. So I don't know if I would necessarily expect GTA 6 to come to the Switch 2 anytime soon, because we're still waiting for it to come out on the PS5 and the Xbox Series, and then the PC. But maybe sometime in the distant future, sure. If they can get it working, we'll see it then. But that tells me we're probably years and years off, so who knows if it'll ever actually happen. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about that Japan-specific PlayStation 5 that was announced, coming out here actually pretty soon. And the idea was basically to mirror what Nintendo has done, region lock a system to Japan and make it cheaper, because the yen itself is very weak right now. And so because of that, with exchange rates and manufacturing, it makes for a very expensive region-free device at that point. So if you lock it down in Japan and keep it there, you can play around with the pricing a bit more, because you know it's probably not going to then make its way out of Japan and be sold in the US or in Europe or something like that. Well, with this in mind, it appears we have some more information pretty recently. We can see this. This is over on Install-Base Forum, saying a Japanese media outlet TV Tokyo reported something very interesting regarding the new Japan-only PS5 release. They did go ahead and translate this here for the forum post, but the general idea here is, in the background, while global PlayStation sales were growing, the brand had been losing share in Japan. We have seen that, by the way. Just it's struggling behind the PS4 and some of the other devices that Sony has released in the past there, as Sony was becoming more and more Western driven, you could say, very strong in Europe, strong in the US, weakening though in Japan, which Sony is a Japanese company, so seems kind of strange to go in that direction. But there was an internal sentiment within SIE at that time that it's acceptable if the Japanese market continues to shrink. However, the new president, Nishino, who is Japanese, feels a strong sense of crisis about the decline of the PlayStation brand in Japan. This sense of urgency shared by Nishino and the Japanese team helped push forward the Japan-focused measures, which they seem to get that done very quickly. I mean, they're mentioning, yeah, it was done in like 4 months or so. They got it from them conceptualizing it to then greenlighting it to now getting it out to market here this month. All right, so the price cut was a big thing that had to be approved, but it does sound like this did have something to do with Nintendo not only sizing up the idea, but also getting more and more third-party support that is then translating to more interest in Japan and even maybe globally, as the Switch 2 is just taking over completely in Japan at this point. And it might be that case for third parties. Look at Resident Evil 9. That showing up on the Switch 2 was that's pretty big. I mean, Capcom, I'm sure, was very happy that it ran within reason on the system and that they could get it out day one alongside the other versions. But now think about Square Enix really looking at the Switch 2 with the Final Fantasy VII Remake, Rebirth, and this third one eventually all going to the Switch 2. They've already mentioned that. Who knows the next mainline Final Fantasy game, the next big Dragon Quest game? I mean, these are all very important tentpole releases that Sony just kind of had by default. But the Switch 2 is it is kind of in that good enough territory, even alongside of PlayStation 5 releases, that if these third-party companies can get it there, you could see Nintendo take over more and more of that third-party market share. So there you go. Competition's good, especially, as you can see, in Japan, where they're going to get a cheaper PlayStation 5. So I guess good news, at least in that regard. I'll be curious to see if this does have a legitimate effect on sales as we go forward, so we'll keep an eye on the Famitsu sales charts. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, what's the biggest snub for the Game Awards Game of the Year from these high-rated games? So I just picked out some of the higher-rated games of the year that I saw a lot of people kind of yelling about, really, that weren't in. Split Fiction, by the way, number one at 41%. That was the big one that I was a little surprised about. Ghost of Yotei at 33%, interesting. Arc Raiders had come up as, oh, this multiplayer game should be nominated. That came at 15%. Monster Hunter Wilds at 11%. I don't know if it's still just the performance of that game or what, but like in terms of technical side, I thought that might have been higher, gotten more votes. I don't know. That's interesting. Split Fiction, though, clearly for me was the big one that I was surprised not being in there. You would have had to have kicked out, I guess it would have been Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. So if that was the fight for that 6th spot, genuinely surprised that Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 managed to take that from Split Fiction. But hey, there you go. Again, we're kind of arguing about, I wonder what happens with 5th and 6th place or whatever, because Expedition 33 probably going, I don't know if they'll run the table for everything they were nominated for. They'll certainly be taking the majority of the awards that they're up for, though. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Juan Rubio. It says, people are not spending $900 or $1,000 on the Steam machine. It's insane. Even with the current day's prices of PC parts, you can still build something more powerful for that price. Yeah, if it was going to be $900 or $1,000 when they were kind of putting it together on the whiteboard, they probably would have started erasing the whiteboard right there. I mean, let's start over. Let's figure out how to get this price down. Because there's no point then. If you're going to show up with that sort of I guess a price bracket for this system, people will just go, I'll build a PC, or I'll go find a more powerful one. That's the thing. The specs right now that we have in a vacuum, people really aren't sure what to think of them because we don't have a price to correlate it with. When we get that price, it'll be a bit easier to say, okay, this is a good system or it's a bad overpriced system, right? So that's kind of where we are. We're in limbo right now. I do think it's going to be a $600 system for the 512 gig model. And I don't know, the 2 terabyte, I'll just say it'll probably be like a $750 one. The controller with or without, that's the question, right? And a pack-in game, that's another question, which we'll see about that one. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you wanted to hear more about my thoughts around the Steam machine's pricing and where I think it's going to fall, as well as how Valve could have a bit of a wild card up their sleeve with maybe a pack-in title. I'll leave that right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.